Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode number 40. Obviously, if I haven't stated this enough recently, I'm really loving how I'm now managing pit crew training and the progress we've been able to make of late. Specifically, here with the month of March ahead of us, we're into regular racing now, and yet we're still already outdoing where we were a year ago. Car building, well, okay, we still have the -5 from that, but it's very close to being just a -4. So okay, that one's still a let off. I will slowly get where we need to get with that. But car release, right back to where it was a season ago. Wheel gun is now going to be about 3 points above where it was last year at the end of the season. The new tires is a point or two above last season. Used tire off, same. And Jax is at least 2 points above where we were a year ago. So we're already better than where we finished last season in terms of the pit crew attributes. Meanwhile, the estimated pit stop time has likewise just about gotten back or is right about where we finished last season. Maybe better. That's incredible. I mean, we've already made that level of progress. At the same time, worth mentioning here is that while a 2 race week month is definitely easier to find progress than a 3 race week month, it's still not easy. And yet, here we are comfortably. We're going to finish the month with 2 heavier training days and still only be at 6% fatigue entering next month, which is a typical 1 day session for me where I do 1 session and rest for the second session, and that's going to lower it down to 2%, something along those lines. Pretty easy to then go back and train double or do what you got to do. I've really found the balance in all of this, and recovery after a race is the harder one, but it's not that bad. And the fact that we are continually making gains and, like I said, getting beyond the point where we were a year ago so fast is really, really encouraging that I'm figuring out this pit crew thing. We've only had 1 race weekend so far, so I'm not expecting much yet. Starting next month, I'm really expecting them to pick up the pace again. But Sargent, +1 to control. Florsch, +2 to defending. That's all we got this time around. In addition to 2 new drivers and 3 female drivers overall added to the pool, giving us 4 female drivers, which means we actually even have the element of choice down the road. Of course, we are still not prepared to be a competitive team with only female drivers. So we're still going to have to figure out that plan of attack, and I've discussed options. But the 2 staff positions that were still unoccupied by females finally now have the opportunity to be occupied by females. But the 2 new females in the race engineering pool are literally the weakest 2 in the entire pool. Just a 40 overall for Stefania Palumbo, and then Ava Moore is a 46 overall. Now, she's a little bit closer to being acceptable. They both do have a role in F3 for the time being. Just for the time being, I am going to give them the opportunity to remain in F3 and learn 50 plus. I might be bringing one of them on at the very least and get started with their progression. One of the things that I don't mind so much about your race engineers is the communication element. Communication is how fast the affinity between the race engineer and the paired driver grows. High affinity is the same regardless of race engineer and driver, though. So once you've gotten there, it's great. It's just a matter of time. We're in this game for the long haul. We are in this process, in this attempt to make things work for the long haul. So Ava Moore having quite the head start on the other one would be somebody I would want to pair with Florsch, as she's the one who's further ahead in development, and even though she might not eventually be the best female available to us, she's the one, we're going to be aiming for, at least for quite a while. So communication's not important. What is important is the feedback and composure. Training can help address that, but you can see that for this one, she's the wrong direction. Her best attribute is the one that matters the least. The feedback and composure is what we need. That feedback has to do with practice setup, so bonus to your attributes, which she needs bonuses to attributes. Flourish does not have good attributes. And then composure, and this is having to do with recovering from mistakes and or feeling good about positive incidents. Again, that's something that Flourish is struggling with at times out there because she's more error prone and then gets down on herself. So this would make the game a whole lot more challenging for us if we very quickly jumped in and hired the race engineer. And things are difficult enough right now as it is. One thing I wouldn't mind doing at some stage, though, is if we are really strong, one way we can get a step backward when it comes to Sargent is not just replacing him, but replacing the race engineer with somebody like the Stefania Palumbo, who's the weaker one, which will really hold him back out on track and could make it to where it's going to help Palumbo develop more quickly and catch up and be competitive eventually. So that's something to consider. We now have more options, more variables out there to kind of pick from how we want to progress. But at least they are finally in the pool. We finally have female race engineers in the pool for the first time. And we will make use of that before too long, as those are the... Well, technically, we're down to 4 positions that are unfilled. We have 5 staff, 3 of them are female. We now have those 2 availabilities. But yeah, an 86 and an 82 down to a 46 and a 40 is a massive, massive drop-off. 40 points and 42 points. That's huge. And then, of course, in the driver's department, there are still 2. We have our reserve driver and that second seat. The reserve driver thing is something we want to get on with here much sooner rather than later. That could actually also be another way to help nerf Sargent a little bit, because if we hire a female driver as our reserve driver, Tanaka might actually even be available by this point as we are past the first race of the season. But if we could bring Tanaka in and then start giving her FP1 sessions. But to give her FP1 sessions, that means I'm going to have to go out there and control the FP1, and then, we can skip sessions 2 and 3. Or at least I'd have to test to see if it works. If I can just replace driver, sim the session, will it have replaced the driver? Will Tanaka be the one running, or would it default back to Sargent because it makes its own selections when you skip past? Depending on how that goes, I'd have to control FP1 manually to get Tanaka in the seat every FP1 throughout the season so she can develop faster. That, though, would be very helpful to getting her prepared to take over from Sargent, or take over from, if we could still go along the route of what I was talking about, hire a driver in the low 70s. So the team as a whole is less competitive, but they're still a bit better than Flourish, but that gap between them closes and the team becomes more where we need it to be while developing that. There's just so much at play here. I love that there's so many variables, but it's challenging to get the mix on that. We're into March. We have 24 million. Facility upgrade could be on the way here fairly soon. I have recently gone in to refurbish a lot of things that, over the end of season to beginning of season window, that few months that were in there led to a number of things dropping in condition.
We're here in Jeddah, where the tension is boiling as we head into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We're on the shores of the Red Sea in the shade of Jeddah's skyscrapers. This might be a dream setting, but as we know, in Formula One, not all dreams come true. Jeddah Corniche circuit is hot and high-powered, demanding speed for the straights and a high grip level through corners that are tight to the barriers. Starting tyre choices will be crucial here, with teams ever mindful of opportunities that a safety car could give.
By the way, the only thing we'd be losing for Sargent is track acclimatization, because if you swap drivers, they're going to pass on the car parts knowledge and the setup satisfaction they gain to the main driver that they're standing in for as the sessions continue. So the car parts knowledge, setup satisfaction, that's all going to come together still. It's just the track acclimatization that's going to be a bit weaker. Now, setup satisfaction, though, is going to be harder to achieve with a reserve driver than it is with your top driver who has affinity with that crew chief. It's not 100% handover. This one's 100% handover. That's like 90% handed over. And that one's not handed over at all, meaning they're going to lose a third of their gains every race weekend. Sargent has qualified 8th, just again, testament to kind of where the car is at, where he's at these days. But huge for us, her highest ever qualifying position. Florsch has qualified P19, I think, maybe twice. But she's beat Zane Maloney and Xiao Guan Yu for P18. She's going to start for P18. Just really shows that she's right there now, starting to get competitive. Still at the back, right? Not competing for points or anything, but getting competitive. If she could start beating drivers head to head, and then as the car gets better and better, move up the grid further and further, if we can start getting her top 10s at some point, even if it means her teammate is winning, we can start getting her top 10s, she's competing for points, then you can really justify dropping off what you have otherwise.
The drivers are lined up on the grid here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, preparing for 50 flat-out laps under the lights. Logan Sargent, definitely one to keep an eye on today.
They're bound to be a little frustrated down in P8, but hopefully they can channel their determination.
But just what will happen here, your guess is as good as mine. It's almost time for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
I love how they think we should be frustrated with starting from P8. Just goes to show how far we've come, as we are 3 wide here at the start of this one. Technically already up a position. Full attack for now, Sargent. Okay, we come through in second out of that mix. Stroll comes ahead, Ocon tucks in, and we hold the middle ground. In between every season, there's always discussion of which 3 tracks would you get rid of, which tracks would you add. Some people always say Monaco's got to go, the racing's terrible, the spectacle's not. Love it. There is still racing that happens there. It's not just a procession, but yes, there are things that I think could be resolved, could be fixed, that could help with the racing in Monaco, that could make it a little easier to have overtaking. But the whole new generation of car was supposed to help with that, and instead of helping with that, they've really just catered to Red Bull and their style, and it's been what it's been here as we are halfway through lap number 2. And now challenging to go forward. We're side by side with Stroll. Can we complete the overtake? And up beside the McLaren as well. Oh, buddy. We're going to be on the outside in a second, but we complete the overtake. Up to P5. Wow. Wow, P5. Okay. Interesting. And Florsch is not last. We're looking at a one-stop strategy here. Just softs to mediums. That's it. That could make for a very quick race. Now it's going to be about the fuel. 1.9 was the 1 lap worth, but 2.5 is where it put us. Florsch overtakes Maloney back up into P18. And we're closing up on Bottas, and we've pulled away from Norris more than a second ahead. If I were to pick three tracks to get rid of, Saudi Arabia would be the first. The track is dangerous. Probably the most dangerous one out there, though. Spa has definite history, and they've tried to address it. So until we've really seen whether incidents still occur or not, as we are pulling away from Stroll and Co., by the way, now 1.8 ahead. That one's still a little bit of a mystery, but they've at least tried to address the issues. Jeddah, They made changes after the first year, but they did not make it less dangerous, only marginally anyway. And we just passed signs. We're up to P4. Okay, side by side, not hanging onto it. Maybe we do hang onto it here. Holy cow. Sargent competing at the front of the grid. And Florsch competing at the back of the grid, but competing. This is an incredible start to the new season. We have a new chassis on this race weekend, by the way, our 4th upgrade since January 1st. 2 more currently active, with only one of them having the remainder of our tunnel time from the last period, from the first period of the year. Then we just started a new period here at the start of the month, at the start of the week before this race weekend, and I've got a second underfloor upgrade for the year on the way, and I've really kind of focused on having a good strong underfloor as kind of the centerpiece of our aerodynamic principles. But this is amazing. We've pulled away from Russell now. No, Sainz, that is. Sainz is the one we've pulled away from. He dropped off the group. Russell has gotten around him. It's only 1.7 seconds, though, so they are really not far back. Ocon also back. Magnussen is back. Florsch is up to P17, overtaking Giovinazzi. That's cool. This is cool. I'm enjoying this season so far, folks. Liking how things are looking at the moment. We're in a little 2-3-4 sandwich with Bottas and Verstappen. This track and how unsafe the track is, and how missiles landing in the city nearby adds to the danger element. This is the first one that I would part ways with. If FIA backs it, of course, tooth and nail, that doesn't mean I have to. Meanwhile, if I were to pick a second track, I think the worst track out there for racing seems to be Miami. I do not believe that the U.S. has too many races. 3 races is not too many. The U.S. is pretty much the size of Europe. Europe has race after race after race after race, the vast majority of the races on the calendar. It's a world championship. There are countries like Italy with more than one race. Italy is tiny in comparison. We're up to P2 at the moment. We've gotten around Bottas and Verstappen, and just 3 seconds behind Leclerc in the race lead. Now without DRS, that makes us susceptible, but what an incredible race so far. Florsch battling with Gio. They've closed up on the cars ahead. When she was in the lead there, they gained about a second on Albon and those cars ahead. Wouldn't that be something if she can start battling consistently for like a 14th, 15th, 16th kind of place? Maloney's fallen off. He's a ways back. Florsch just got overtaken a couple of times, though. Once you get in a vulnerable position, you're in a vulnerable position and more likely to go back. And she is surrounded by a few cars, at least, on mediums, which could hurt her later. If she ultimately finishes 20th, she ultimately finishes 20th, and I'm not as worried about that. I am hopeful, though, that she can just keep this up throughout the season. But meanwhile, Sargent competing at the front, chance for big points, and quickly becoming a candidate for replacement for being too good relative to the car. We have a goal, we have an objective, and we are shattering that goal and objective. And while that means more money at the end of the season, it means a huge jump in expectations. And the reality is Florsch is our team leader, and Florsch is not scoring points. She is not meeting those expectations. So raising that bar and turning us into a team that's expected to finish, say, top 3 would not be good for her. But if we had a car suddenly capable of scoring points for Florsch and the expectation were 10th, then we'd be meeting the expectations and doing well and keeping the board happy. And as she gets better and as the car gets dominant, eventually you find a balance, you make it work. So yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards replacing Sargent sooner rather than later, especially if we're going to be scoring some podiums this season. Then using that replacement driver to hopefully still continually score points, but just not be up near the podiums. Leclerc's pulled away a little bit, but we've pulled away a little bit from those chasing us. And it's bunched back up all the way down to Stroll till you get to Ocon. Pit window is opening. We're almost at that time. Fuel is recovering pretty quickly here. But we're also 2/5 of the way through the race here. In traffic, back up the inside of Sainz. Trying to get back up into P3, but not having enough traction on the exit. No, we do have enough traction on the exit. And we just about got ahead there. Florish has pulled away a bit from Maloney. Magnussen and De Vries have already pit, I believe. Ooh, we get around Bottas? No, we tuck back in just before we hit pit road. Oh, we both hit pit road. Well, damn. That's a shame because of the way the game makes you wait. 2.622. We sat there for about a tenth of a second waiting for the Alpine to pull away, and we're going to end up with a way too big of a gap. Instead of coming out right behind him, we come out a ways back. Flourish down pit road. 2.722. Terrible stop. Our stops have not been representative of where our pit crew is at, but we have not made mistakes at least. So, Sargent, P11 is where we've come out at. Flourish is P20. Chance to undercut a lot of other cars, and let's hope we can make some forward progress. Put in some quick laps at the moment. Russell behind. Looks really quick. Russell's already pit. He's hit a lap ahead of us and gotten tires up to temperature a little bit faster, I would think. And thanks to 3 DRS zones, we close right up on Russell, and we've pulled away from Gasly and Stroll. So yes, that outlap thing is challenging. It's hard to get up to temperature. It's hard to get into that up to speed situation. But where you come out at, it's going to be important. If cars come out ahead of you, we barely squeezed off Gasly, otherwise we would have been stuck behind him and Russell would be long gone. Right now, every single car on track is on mediums, but a lot are going to be switching to the softs here at some point. We're just past the halfway point, so not going to go a while yet. And over the short haul, we have caught up to Lando Norris, who is still on used mediums, maybe a lap or two away from his pit stop, which means we're just about a full pit stop ahead of Norris, and we actually even got DRS there. Close up on him. Sainz into the pits. Norris does not dive off into the pits, though, and we catch up to him at pretty much the worst place because the next DRS zone's not for quite a while. We've got a lot of lap to go around. We'd pulled away from Russell by a second with a little DRS help. We had a lot more pace than he had and pulled away quite comfortably. We've recovered 1 kilogram worth of fuel in 27 laps, and we've got 21 left to go. So we can suspect that we're going to need to save about half a kilogram worth of fuel at some stage here as we overtake Norris. And I'm guessing Norris is going to dive off into the pits, right? Not yet. Not yet. Verstappen pits, though. And we're up to P3, which is where we belong, right? Yes, it is. Norris, the last car who has yet to pit at the front of the field. A couple at the back also have remained out. Norris, we've pulled away from him, and he's now holding up Russell. He is now holding up Russell. We are more than 2 seconds ahead. More than 2 seconds ahead as Russell has gotten around Norris. But we've opened up a 2-second gap in that battle to happen. So I'm liking that, how that's worked out for us. And Norris dives off into the pits. But he did buy us about a 1 second. We've got a yellow car, yellow flag, big crash, main straight. So just sent the fastest. Here we go. First crash of the season. There was one lockup in the last race, and that was it.
That's quite
McLaren,
an
the
impact
Haas,
between them. I wouldn't be
Magnussen was the
surprised if
McLaren.
there were a few words exchanged when they get back to the paddock.
Not much in that one, though. The flag's already cleared up, so we continue racing. We've never finished above P6 last race. We managed to do that for just the second time in our career. Right now, we are on for a podium. There are varied strategies out there, though. So, Verstappen's the first one on a varied strategy. Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda, too far back, too far gone. Verstappen, definitely a threat to take a podium position away from us. Gasly and Russell could be a threat as well. Verstappen's already caught up to them, and there's 15 laps to go. Yeah, I think Verstappen's going to probably come through and take third. And probably second. We've caught Bottas, by the way. We've caught Bottas. We're up to P2. Completely on merit. Verstappen, though, real threat. He's already caught up. And he's drug those other two cars back up there with us. So 2-second advantage is gone between overtaking Bottas and Verstappen's pace. That's all back together. Florsch's P17 at the moment. 4 seconds ahead of Magnussen, who's 1.4 ahead of Gio. And Maloney, 9 seconds further back. Verstappen gets up alongside. Bottas gets around him. That's going to make us a sitting duck here in a moment. So his tires are at 63. They're going to be a lot worse than what we have soon enough, but right now they're not. Right now he's definitely got extra pace compared to us. In the closing laps, we might be able to get back around him. For now, Bottas is falling off, though. Stroll and Gasly are falling off, though. And there goes Verstappen into P2. We want to stay close while we try to pull away from Bottas so we have the podium secure, and then we can worry about that last little bit of fuel. Florsch is already just about taking care of her fuel, but it had her drop off Magnussen as a result. Oh, man. Gio and Magnussen both on softs. No wonder Magnussen passed her and pulled away. But Gio, that 56%, could be a sitting duck here. He's going to lose a lot of pace from where what he was at. And she got back around him already, actually. And our fuel is nearly right at this end. Closing up on Leclerc, but I think a bit too far to actually challenge him. I think Leclerc's got the win wrapped up. A little more conserve. I want to be able to push at the end and try to get the overtake done, and we might get it done anyway. As he's losing pace, here we are down start-finish line and ahead of Verstappen. Now staying ahead's a different matter. We've actually pulled away from Bottas, but Verstappen with DRS has so much extra pace he easily gets back around us and gets a double dose of DRS even though he had already pulled ahead. But we're going to get the one down the start-finish line to pull back up closer. 3 laps to go. 3 laps to go. Let's get another 10th or so. I want to be able to kind of push the entire last lap. There's that 10th. Not facing the prospect of getting lapped. 3/4 of a lap down to a teammate who's battling right now for P2. What we were seeing where she would be 1 or even almost 2 laps down before. Okay, she's got some spare fuel now. She's got to close back up on Gio. Still side by side. Can we be just behind? Just behind. I think we were just behind. Okay, we're gonna pull in ahead.
Okay, we are P to push.
Meanwhile, Florsch,
Yep, copy that.
she's still got a lap and a half to go, so
Sense
we'll wait
off.
a little bit longer for her.
Be
But
careful
Sargent
on start
still
finish.
side
A lot
by
of debris.
side. I'd love to be just behind. Red flag. Red flag, signs out of the race. Now, I'm P2, but it looks like it gave me P3. We had already overtaken Verstappen,
They'll be aiming
but
much higher than
I
that.
think they gave us P3. They did. They gave us P3 because of the last detection zone is where they go back to. So Verstappen actually ends up getting P2 even though we had overtaken him on track ahead of what was going on with the crash. And Sainz gets 2 points even though he's out of the race. Even though, because of the last detection zone, he was ninth. It's Sainz. It's the Red Bull. It's the Red Bull who cheats to give his teammate some bonus points. That's okay. You know what? That is perfectly okay. We just scored our first ever podium. Should have been second, but less points is probably a good thing for us at this point. We're doing too well. Florsch, I was preparing to attack on the final lap. She never got a chance to do it. She finishes P19. But she was ahead of Maloney. She was right there with Gio. She was close to De Vries and Magnussen. That's fantastic to see. And my oh my, we just scored a whole bunch of points. 4th in the drivers after 2 races. 5th in the constructors. Head of Mercedes. Definitely just 6 teams scoring all of the points through each of the 2 first races. 2 races into the season, I want to see where we actually are. But usually teams kind of wait till race day to set up. So let's go ahead and push towards that next race day. I'm not going to take on the next race day, though. I will get back to 2 race episodes, but I'm a little busy at the moment and only have so much time. Our DRS effectiveness is 8% above grid average. Our top speed is 1 kilometer an hour above grid average. We are a little behind on acceleration, but low speed, medium speed, high speed, quartering are all above it. But again, race day tends to paint a different picture than what you get a week ahead of time. Without looking at every single individual team, sure enough, we do have the best car out there. No wonder we finally got a podium. Driver difference, though, is showing up. So driver quality is definitely a factor in why we are not doing better. But top speed, it's us. Acceleration is 9th. DRS effectiveness is 1st. Cornering is 1st. Dirty air tolerance is 1st. Brake cooling is 5th. Engine cooling is 8th. And total extra weight is already bumped to 3rd. I have 2 new components that have just a single one manufactured so far, so they're not really ready. This is with those 2 components. I would go back to put them off for another race weekend and get them on the car later. With those, though, we actually are. We are the team to beat car-wise. Driver-wise, we're still not quite there, but this is something. We really did put so much into this year's car, and it's starting to show up. Just a reminder that the season objective is just 7th. We are cruising to 5th, maybe even a 4th based on how things are going. That's almost too good, right? Podium contender is the long-term objective. We just had our first podium. It's all nice, right? They're delighted with the last couple, and after those recent performances, definitely helps. But the thing is you don't want to do too well. If we finish 4th this season, the expectation next season is going to be to finish 4th or 3rd. Yes, they're going to take into account how good the car is, but they're going to take our performance into account most of all. If we finish 6th or 7th this season, then they're more inclined to hope for a 5th next year type thing. We've seen that. It's already happened. We built a good car. We've built a competitive car now, but it's not light years beyond everybody else, and our drivers are definitely not there either. So it's going to be hard to consistently do much, but it's clear that we can score some podiums this season and probably easily get to 6 if we are to hang on. So I think those handicaps, whether it's new pit crew engineers, whether it's a new reserve driver, both of those 2 things I think I need to look at here much sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we could put ourselves in a very dangerous position going forward. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.